Hey guys, welcome back to What's Up Grimes. My name is Jen and I'm sitting here with MK.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, the sun's going down behind you. Crazy.
Real life happening.
It's that
right around
fall
us.
time. Yeah, it's that like fall time where it gets dark and everybody gets depressed at 7, you know?
I am loving it. I haven't experienced actual fall in like 10 years. So seeing the constant blowing of the leaves, the trees are vibrant and beautiful. There's a crisp in the air.
Oh yeah.
And we have a pumpkin. I mean, I'm so happy.
Oh yeah. Fall is my favorite season. I actually have my fall candles lit. Time to podcast.
Yes.
Okay, guys, today we are going to talk about music, memory, and emotion because there is a lot of research behind this. We're going to start by talking about our feelings when we listen to Grimes music, and that's what inspired me to want to discuss this and research it. So, MK, listening to Grimes music, how does it make you feel?
It honestly depends on the song, but I think when I first heard her, it literally, like, this sounds very dramatic, but it brace yourself. It felt like a part of me had awoken that had been asleep or anesthetized for
Yes.
years, because I always rework the same albums kind of, and as you age, you kind of lose sight of what's hip, what's actually the good stuff is, or where to look for it, because each generation, like, that kind of changes. So as a grown adult person, I really kind of lost all hope for finding anything new. And obviously Grimes was not new, it was new to me. And it was basically like a divine intervention.
That's how I felt too, because like you, I hadn't listened to anything new in years, and I listened to her. I put her music on to study in grad school, thinking I was not going to like it. I was like, I'm just going to have some background music, whatever. I want to find out who this person is that's dating Elon at the time. And same thing, total life-changing experience, made me feel like I was floating. I couldn't get enough of it. So there are certain songs, I listen to Grimes every day. I know you do
Me
too.
too.
And there are still certain songs that get me every time. Oblivion, Symphonia. We just talked about Visions a minute ago.
Yes.
That stuff gets me.
Yeah, Reality. Like, I don't always put it on, but it does. I have a YouTube mix and it will come on and I'm like, yeah, all right. Like, it gets me every time.
It's so good.
Yeah, it really is.
There's a reason, y'all, why we're responding to music the way that we do. So listening to and performing music activates areas of the brain that are associated with memory, reasoning, speech, emotion, and reward. So we'll talk more about that reward center later on, but your happy chemicals are being released when you're listening to something like Grimes that really gets you.
Yeah.
There were actually 2 recent studies that were done. One was in the United States and the other one was in Japan. And it found that music doesn't just help us retrieve stored memories, it actually also helps us lay down new ones. And this was a Harvard study. So
Wow.
the point of this podcast is we're not just going to talk about the emotional part. We're going to talk about the memories as well. I think it's just crazy when we look into what music does for us. Like, do you ever stop and think about it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, before I was really into movies, TV, I was only music. Like, I went to school to study music. I wanted to be a music journalist. Everything, every waking moment was music and different genres of music. I played instruments. Like, it was my whole life. It is the most amazing medium, more so than, because it's way more subjective, I think, a lot of ways, because it does trigger you to think about your own life and what you like, instead of, when you're watching a movie and you're watching something, you're trying to pay attention to that, not necessarily like think of things and have it wash over you.
I have an unrelated question.
Shoot.
You can play instruments. Did you go to band camp?
I did not.
Bummer, man.
I hung out with all those kids though.
They were the best kids, right?
Yeah, they were wild though. Some of them were wild.
Band camp kids.
Yeah.
What the heck? I mean, in the best way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You guys okay? You survived those summers.
Yeah.
Of like band camp.
Yeah. I hung out in the band hallway in high school. I was adjacent. I was theater. I was a theater nerd. So we did chorus, so that was like a crossover to band. But
that makes sense.
Yeah, no camp for me though.
Sorry to get us off track. David Rubin is a specialist in autobiographical memory and oral traditions, and in his groundbreaking book, Memory and Oral Traditions, he explains how epic stories like Homer's The Iliad and the Odyssey were passed down verbally using poetic devices. So before narratives could be written down, they were chanted or sung, and oral tradition depended on memory. So those two things were intricately connected in the human brain, which is fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people would go from town to town singing, like advertising what they were selling. And that was how you entertained people. That's how you got the word out about something. You made a song about it because not everybody could read.
Exactly. And I loved that about revisiting this, because I was thinking about Gothic cathedrals, for example. Part of why they were made to be so magnificent was because the average human couldn't read, but you could experience the glory of God regardless of your education level.
Right.
You walked into the cathedral, regardless of your belief system. It's pretty phenomenal to walk into one of those old school cathedrals.
Absolutely. Even just a regular church, a lot of time the structure and music a lot of times really affects you.
Exactly. It's, when people say it's a spiritual experience, there's a reason behind that. So this next part comes from a professor of psychology at UC Davis's Center for Mind and Brain. They say what seems to happen is that a piece of familiar music serves as a soundtrack for a mental movie that starts playing in your head. It calls back memories of a particular person or place, and you might all of a sudden see that person's face in your mind's eye. I have a pretty specific example, but when you heard that, do you have a song that you tie to a certain situation in your life that just hasn't left?
So many. Like, I don't even think I could pick one. That's like something I have to sit and think about, because so many. So, and a lot of, sometimes like a group of, music, whether it even came out at that time or not, it's just something that I found at the time, is nostalgic of it, like an actual time period, not just triggering a memory. Like just that feeling of being that age and where you are is all, and smell too. The smell of everything is all brought up just from hearing that song.
Yes. So 2 examples from my own life, because like you, I have 1,000, but the ones that hit me the strongest, Green Day's When I Come Around takes me right back to high school, because Green Day was all we listened to. And My Chemical Romance were all we listened to back in.
I was going to say Green Day is a little like older school for you, but I guess they did come out with American Idiot around that time. So that would have been like their resurgence.
Yeah, that would have been middle school for me. So of course we were still listening to it at that time. And then the second would be Grimes. So at the time that I discovered Grimes and I started making a memes page, which was fun because it was like all at once. And so I can remember I would drive up to my family's house a lot. They needed some support at that time with moving, and I would drive up all the time. It was about an hour drive to Grimes music. And so a lot of her songs, Adore You, brings back really good memories of like driving in the summertime to my family's house. Every time I listen to it, it's that ingrained.
Yeah. I actually, I have so many, but I'll pick a Grimes song too, since, that is our thing here.
That's
right. So Shinigami Eyes, every time I hear that song, I think of like it was in January, like right after Christmas. I think about like every time I hear the whole song, I think about the experience of being able to finally watch the video and being so excited, even when I hear it for like, and we've all heard it a billion times already, but it's still like when I hear the full part of the song, not just the hook, it reminds me of meeting you, like really getting to build our friendship and fighting a whole other part of my life. So it kind of reinvigorates that when I hear that in Shinigami Eyes.
That's such a good point, because I remember when it dropped, because there was so much hype around it when it dropped.
Oh yeah.
It was a work day for you and I. Did you move yet? Were you still in LA?
No, I was still in LA. Yeah. I remember.
So it was earlier in the work day for you, but I remember I took a full-on work break to like hit replay and dance to it in my office because we had waited so long.
Yeah. Yeah, I was still working from home. I was like literally at the part of my day where I was just like sending emails, but like had my phone out, talking to everybody, getting ready for it, and I remember watching it and then like going back and freaking out with everyone, and it was just, and seeing all the posting, like I guess I'm nostalgic for just more from her. So when I hear that song, it makes me want the rest of the album.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because some of my favorite moments the past couple years, when Grimes releases something and you're involved in the community, everybody goes crazy. So your DMs blow up, Instagram pages blow up, stories, posts, whatever about it. And as a fan, it's one of the most communal experiences.
I think this song, I mean, Player of Games had already come out, and I think I felt it a little with that, but I had gotten to know you guys a few, months longer. And that was like the bigger song. That was supposed to be like the first hit, in my opinion, Shinigami Eyes. But just that experience of being on the ride that it is to be a fan and seeing everybody come out of the woodwork, it was really fun.
Yeah, it's such a communal experience. This next quote, or I should say this next bit of research that I want to share comes from BBC. It's often pop music that evokes memories from times in our lives early on. So for example, my situation with Green Day, there's a reason why that's such an ingrained memory. It's because this music played in the background, whether we selected it or not, during times in our life when we were growing up and developing as a teenager. And so that became ingrained in your brain. Pop music tends to be in the moment. So that's why pop music is around you, whether you want it or not, when you're in a brain stage of development. And that's why that stuff becomes so ingrained in your brain.
Wow.
Memories stimulated by music often come from certain times in our lives. Most people tend to overly report memories from when they were around 10 to 30 years old. Yeah. Psychologists have called it the reminiscence bump. And that goes back to the quote before about how that tends to be pop music that you're listening to from 10 to 30. Music from the reminiscence bump period can be associated with more memories than music from other periods in your life. And alongside your brain development, our teenage years and 20s are especially important and exciting times in your life because you're experiencing things for the first time. And this all comes from Psychology Today.
Yeah. Having said that, as somebody that found her a lot older than those ages that we threw out there, like, does it dwindle over time? I know obviously the memory as you age obviously isn't as agile, but at the same time, does it slow down? Because I feel just as reinvigorated by finding her like I did when I found the Smashing Pumpkins as a teenager.
What a great point, because like you, I hadn't found anything in years that I was actually interested in, like any artists, like when you're in high school and you were like all about like the Smashing Pumpkins or Green Day or My Chemical Romance, whatever. And I hadn't experienced that since probably high school.
Yes. I mean, I've found people, I've always liked David Bowie. It's just there have been artists that are iconic with your genetic makeup, I guess, like who you've become. But I can say that finding her later was just as impactful and made me feel young. Yeah. Not just by the audience or what kind of music it is. Yep. I felt younger and vibrant and youthful.
Yeah, same. There's something about it that triggers that in you. I wonder what it is scientifically about Grimes music or that ethereal style. There's something in it that's addictive.
Well, just her pop music in general. And I had never been like an EDM person. Like maybe the closest I had ever been was like later Smashing Pumpkins, 9 Inch Nails type stuff. But I never really got into that before her at all.
Now that you're saying that, I think the same. And I actually hadn't experienced any new music, but I have recently because of her DJ sets.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually found stuff that I'm like, oh, that's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a bop.
Yeah. She finds some interesting songs. And I actually add most of the stuff from her DJ sets to my workout.
Same. Playlist. I like to listen to her DJ set in the background, even the parts where she's like, sorry.
Canadian her,
you know what I mean? Okay, This brings us to music therapy. Music therapy benefits in dementia patients. So generally, greater happiness and socialization, better relationships with family, friends, peers, and staff, calmer environment, and improved behaviors are all benefits to music therapy.
Yeah. A lifetime ago, I studied to be a music therapist and shadowed a jazz singer that had gone to my college, was an alumni. So I lived at her house in New York, like right outside New York. She had like huge house, and I had my own like little apartment for 7 weeks. And I kind of shadowed her around. I like helped her with admin stuff, but also like was going to NYU to for the music therapy department. And they worked a lot with autistic kids. And that's kind of how I got into it, which is interesting because now I have an autistic child, and like that kind of was a passion of mine. But it's so impactful, like what music can do and what it can bring out of people, especially people with mental issues, you know, and severe people that can't even speak.
Mm-hmm. When I was a clinical intern, I interned at a psychiatric hospital, which was a great experience. That was always something that I wanted to work with. I wanted to work with populations that generally don't get the care that they need and deserve, in my opinion. And part of what they offered was a music therapy class where you could show up after, like I would teach groups, for example, and we would integrate art therapy and we would integrate a music therapy group.
Mm-hmm.
And it was phenomenal because, again, it
Yeah.
evokes so much emotion, and listening to people share their experiences while listening to the music, you can't deny it.
No. And I feel like in my particular situation with my son, I found out a lot about him, not just by like the YouTube stuff he wanted, like the YouTube kid shows or like Disney Plus movies, like, oh, I want to watch that because otherwise I wouldn't know, right? So he loves Nightmare Before Christmas. He's my child. And he picks Jack's Lament song and This Is Halloween all the time. And he will full on become Jack and do all the moves and the exact ones that he does in the movie. This is behavior that I've never seen him previously do. And he'll look in the mirror and like mouth the words exactly, like total lip sync. So it actually has helped his development because he's able to express himself when he hears music that he likes.
That's phenomenal. And it reminds me of the videos that we've all seen floating around of when Alzheimer's patients are shown or are listening to music.
Yeah.
Or music videos, and they do the same thing. It taps into some part of your brain where you just come alive.
Yeah, it alleviates something.
Yeah. It's amazing. Also, I alluded to this earlier, music boosts dopamine levels. Of course, as we know, dopamine is a chemical messenger that plays a role in how we feel pleasure. So it also helps us to think and plan, helping us strive, focus, and find things interesting. Evidence also shows that an aesthetic stimulus such as music can naturally target the dopamine systems of our brain that are typically involved in highly reinforcing and addictive behavior, according to Psychology Today. So if you look at the science of addiction, it's hitting the same pleasure center, which makes sense because I'm the type of person that like I can't get enough of music during the day if I hear silence, and I think it's that addictive behavior.
Yeah, well, it became a habit, right? And it's there's habits that are healthy, right? So it's a habit, and then it's become like with her in particular, it like became a full-on addiction with like just digesting everything she's done. And it's not even just the music, the interviews, just anything she's ever been a part of. You're like, I just need to see more of you. You have that thing that I want to see more of, you know?
I felt that way with her interviews when I initially found them. Like I could not get enough on YouTube.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I kept watching. I was so obsessed with them. And even now when an interview comes out, I'm like, I gotta watch it now. Like I can't wait till I'm home. Like I gotta watch it now. Like whatever I'm doing. It's effective.
The Vanity Fair ones she did recently where she like has the projector.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And like the big like David Byrne from Talking Heads type blazer.
Yeah.
Love that. She's like, it's like eating her.
It is.
She's I mean, that when that came out, I was like, okay, all right, we're gonna turn off Paw Patrol we're doing this right now on the big
Yep.
screen, not on my phone. Like, we need to see this now.
And they're so rare now that I feel like when something comes out with her, I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we get new content?
I know. You can't blame her. We've talked about it on other episodes. You know, she is a full human outside of our parasocial relationships with her.
Also a grown adult lady.
Yeah. Like, I wonder if she fans about anybody like we fan about her. Like, whose music do you think impacts Grimes?
She's mentioned this before in a couple interviews, like when she reached out to Janelle Monáe. And she said, I fangirled over her so bad. And I like made her fan art. And that's how she got her to come and collaborate with her on Venus Fly.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was a good interview. She's her normal Grimes self in that interview. She's a normal Grimes self in every interview. Like, is there ever like a normal Grimes interview? I would be so sad if there was.
Yes, when she's not talking and just posing on the red carpet or something. Like, that's like a normal.
I like listening to her talk so much.
I know. The interview for Vogue, was it? It may have been Vogue, but it was someone interviewing her at the Met Gala, and she's like towering over this girl because she has those crazy boots on. And the girl's like, "I came here to see you," and like even with the mask on, I felt like she was like, "Oh, really? Oh, yeah, shucks." You know, she has that. I think it's a Canadian thing, but it's very like humble and, you know, very happy to be there. And she was like, you know, she's like, what advice do you have? And she's like, do you like smoking? Because there's smoking in the bathroom. And she's like, well, I don't. She's like, well, you can go in the bathroom or not. It's there.
I remember that because at the time I was DMing somebody and I was like, not Grimes talking about the bathroom on like an interview, a typical Grimes.
It was like normal at first. And then she said that. And I was like, this girl doesn't know.
No, don't bring up the bathroom. But I mean, it's just Grimes. Like, I would not want to watch it if she didn't say stuff like that. So
if I interviewed her, I probably would, you know, we would anticipate that kind of talk. Like, that girl clearly did not expect that kind of response too. So she was like, ugh.
Yeah. You would expect that Grimes would show up like 4 hours late to the interview. So it's like midnight.
Notorious for being late?
Well, if you think about the Lex Friedman podcast, and she had to like push it back so much, and then it was like midnight by the time they filmed it.
Oh yeah. Well, and what is that Twitch guy where she was on it, like that random dude?
Hassan Abi.
Yeah. I had no idea who he was, but she had like been trying to get on that for a while, I guess, during that whole thing.
She'd like canceled on him, and
yeah. Well, I mean, like, I don't think he was nice to her.
That's a whole other conversation, because I hated that live stream. I hated every part of it because of how uncomfortable Grimes looked because of his comments. And then he kept like trying to act like it wasn't his comments that were making her uncomfortable.
Yeah, he was like gaslighting her.
He was gaslighting her the whole time. And then Nadia finally shows up and you could see the relief on her face because she has somebody else to help her. I hated that live stream.
Well, everything about it, like they knock over wine. It's like all awkward. And I'm game for normal awkward.
Yeah, but
this felt like forced awkward.
It felt forced, and there's one moment that I ended up memeing, but it's not really that funny in context, where she says like, what even is this? She's like laughing and saying, what even is this? And you can almost feel her going, what are we doing here?
Yeah, what am I doing here?
Right, what am I doing here? And then finally things kind of get going when Nadia shows up, but I hope she never does that again. And then I know people, they're like huge Hassan fans because he's a huge deal. He's a very big streamer and a very big political commentator, I should say. So I know people that are really into him who I think just say like, oh, this is his personality. It's your personality to be rude?
So for some people, I guess. I don't know, he's really dry and cold. That's how
That wasn't for me.
No. Not for me. Yeah. Well, I'm curious just in her peer group too, like whose music motivates her. Like, I wonder if she gets fired up about Hana's music, and, you know,
that's a good question.
Curious.
She talks about Doja Cat all the time.
That's true. Yeah. And included blips of her talking like in the DJ set.
Oh yeah. I'm a cow.
I don't say meow. We've gotten very off topic.
Sorry, I was just thinking, like, sometimes I do back stretches, like you're on all fours and you're like doing like a cat stretch and then you have a cow stretch, and I sing that song to myself. I'm like, man, I'm a cow. I don't say
bleep, I'm a cow.
Yeah, I was like, I can't say. Action tendency. Music often creates strong action tendencies to move in coordination with the music. So we want to dance. We naturally start moving with it. Mm-hmm. We have foot tapping behaviors. Our internal rhythms, like our heart rate, tend to speed up or slow down and become one with the music. We float or we move with the music. That's Psychology Today reporting on that. So we feel the need to move with it. It does such interesting things in our brain, including Grimes.
Yeah, I love dance. I always danced as a kid, so I always felt that from music, like that. It's almost like primitive.
Yes, it does feel that way. Even with if you think about like drum beats are very pleasing to us. Mm-hmm. It's just beats, and I think that goes back to your heartbeat.
Yeah, just like the life flowing through you. And the music creates its own life and takes you and transports you to other places.
Yes. All right. Consumer behavior. This is super interesting. If you are in the world of marketing, you know about this. Background music has a surprisingly strong influence on consumer behavior. So, for example, there was a study in 1999 that exposed customers in a supermarket drink section to either French music or German music. The results showed that French wine outsold German wine when French music was played, whereas German wine outsold French wine when German music was played. What?
I don't think I would vibe with German music. Like, French music is very like romantic, and I mean, unless it was like classical German composers or something, but they're probably in my mind playing like German drinking songs.
That's what I'm
like Oktoberfest.
Like, yes, that's what I'm thinking, like Oktoberfest. Also, it alters time perception. Music is a powerful emotional stimulus that changes our relationship with time. Yeah. Time does indeed seem to fly when listening to pleasant music. Music is therefore used in waiting rooms to reduce the subjective duration of time spent waiting, and in supermarkets to encourage people to stay for longer and buy more. This is a 2013 study.
Yeah.
Hearing pleasant music seems to divert attention away from time processing. Moreover, this attention-related shortening effect appears to be greater in the case of calm music with a slow tempo.
Yeah.
Quick side note, I had this happen to me today, MK. I was at the post office today. The post office is hell if you live in the United States. Unless you have a nice post office. I don't. It's government bureaucracy hell.
I have not been to a post office in years.
I send like Grimes gift boxes and stuff occasionally. So I have to go to the freaking post office because it's expensive to send that stuff UPS, especially international. I'm not doing that. So I have to go to the post office. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm at the post office today, sending one of my cross stitches out. And here's the thing about the post office, MK, that you have not missed in a long time. There's like 2 clerks working and like 20 people in line every time I go. And it's dead quiet. So like you, like awkwardly dead quiet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like any movement you make, it's like everybody hears it.
Yeah, it's very echoey.
It's so echoey. So the lady in front of me, I don't like it when strangers talk to me, okay? Like, I don't like it. Don't turn around and make funny comments to me in line. Like, I'm not that person. But she turned around to me, and it was so ironic because she goes, "It would be great if they played music or something to make the time pass." And I was like,
yeah,
lady, I'm talking about that tonight on my podcast.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I never thought about the places like that where music isn't playing. Like, even school. Like, you don't have music playing all the time at school. Like, it drags on.
That's a good point. It does drag on, man.
Yeah, my son, he was like, "Do I have to go this long every day?"
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, man. Sorry.
We all know how that feels, at like 3 p.m. slump. Or, oh man, being in school, being in high school, MK, and you're like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 1:30.
Just watching that clock.
Literally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't remember the last time I actually watched a clock to have it hurry up.
Same, because we all have, like I don't have my Fitbit on or whatever, but like there's no physical clock. Do you have a physical clock in your house?
No.
No. Does anybody?
I think some people do. I've seen a few coworkers have like grandfather clocks or something in the background. They're older than me.
My family like collects like actual clocks, and I'm like, I don't want this when you're no longer here. Like, what am I supposed to do with them?
They give them to you?
Yeah, I mean they're gonna be in the will, and I'm like, I don't want this. Are they like worth money? And I'm not talking about grandfather clocks, MK. I'm talking about like regular old wall clocks that used to look really cool, I'm sure, in the 80s, you know?
Okay, if they have one that looks like a watch that has Mickey in it, like those Swatch clocks, that is cool, and I would get behind that. Or late neon like LED lights or something in it, maybe something cool. But
they're not cool. I don't even know. I gotta like find a picture and show you. It's not cool.
You're gonna get
clocks.
You're gonna get clocks. Someone's leaving you clocks, and you can't really argue. You can't be like, "What else you got?"
Right. I don't know. Either they're gonna sell for something, or they're worth nothing. And I have a podcast room, and like the whole back wall is like clocks. And if you don't know us from like the beginning,
crazy.
Yeah, you're just like, why is this chick sitting there with clocks?
Oh my God, it's like Beanie Babies. Somebody leaving Beanie Babies to you in a will.
Did you have all of the Beanie Babies?
Probably most of them.
Same.
Yeah, they're still at my parents' house, I think. They have to be.
Why don't you sell them? They're like worth so much money.
Are they really? I thought that was like a myth.
No, there's only certain types that are worth so much money, but if you had the OG Beanie Babies, like Royal Blue Elephants, one of them or whatever.
Oh, I don't know if I had that.
I don't know what I had and didn't have, but some of them are worth like thousands of dollars on like eBay.
Wow.
But I know you don't talk to your family, so there's no way you're getting Beanie Babies back.
I mean, when everyone is gone, they'll just be the house and Beanie Babies, I guess. They own a house. You know, it's like my brother and I would probably split whatever it is. Living there probably wouldn't be
it's probably
the greatest, but it's like all sorts of like, it's going to be like a Stephen King book collection, Beanie Babies, maybe some records. Like they had a really awesome record collection. Do you have records?
I had some in high school. I didn't have a record player though, MK. It was just like aesthetic to have records.
Yeah.
Do you have a record player? Those are like back in.
I have one. It's an old one. It's like not great, but I got it like a Goodwill a couple years ago. Yeah.
How many records would you?
Records, probably, I don't know, 10, 15. Not much. I didn't really grow it like I should. It does sound better.
Does it?
Mm-hmm. It's true. It's not just a hipster thing.
I was that kid and I like taped them to my wall. I'm not joking. I taped them to my wall. I did too. But then, and I use like regular tape. So when my parents
with the record itself or in the case?
No. In the record. Why did I do this? I had weird, dumb aesthetic ideas. And so when I was like 17, I bought a bunch of records. They were like Alice Cooper records.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I loved Alice Cooper.
Okay, that's something else we need to talk about later.
I saw him in concert, MK. It was great in Nashville.
Oh my God.
I was 17.
When? Oh my
17.
God.
It was great. I still love Alice. Anyway, I bought all of the records because, whatever. And then I like taped some of them to my wall with actual tape. And so when my parents wanted to take them off when I went to college, it ripped wall. Teenage stuff.
Hey, that's their fault for trying to change your room.
And yeah, and they painted it like a really ugly color and put like a rocking chair in it. Like,
you're like, we're having another baby. You're out.
Basically, yeah. Thank God, no, though. I can't imagine having like another one of me. We both have brothers.
Yeah.
And I don't have any sisters, and I can't imagine having a female version of a sibling.
I never thought about it that way. Like I wanted a sister, but I never thought about like what that would actually be like.
People with sisters, let us know what it's like, because I feel like I would compare myself constantly.
Oh yeah, for sure. And depending if you're like twins or like older or younger, your dynamic is like weird, you know, depending on what. If you're the middle child, you're always jealous of the younger one, allegedly. I don't know.
Allegedly. I feel like either it goes really, really well and you're like BFF, which is the movie version, or you hate each other and you're like mortal enemies for life. And like she's hotter than you and you know it, and she does cooler things than you and married up than you.
Oh, that would gut me.
Same. I can't handle that.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, it's, well, I mean, the media does it too. It's not even like in the nuclear family setting either, you know, like we are pit against each other.
Also true.
For the men, for the approval of the men.
And I hate that. And I think you can't help but feel it as a human being in general. The level of competitive feelings that I have as somebody who's not a competitive person, like I don't care anything about competition with sports or whatever. The level of competition you feel with other human beings, like to look a certain way or to like get ahead of everybody else, is gross.
Yeah, I mean, it also comes from like if you have very narcissistic parents, you develop this need and constant need for approval, and you're competitive with it because of that, because you live to have that feeling. So it's not only like a gender thing, but being a woman on top of that makes it that much more worse, you know, because you're trying to get approval from everyone, not just the men.
Yeah, and I imagine the sensitivity to disapproval is severe at times.
Yeah, and I even to this day have to keep myself in check at work, because if something happens that somebody doesn't like, I have to check in with myself and be like, it's not me, it's not personal, you know, having a moment with myself to not spiral, because it's triggering when someone doesn't like something that you do. Is it a personal attack? Do they not like me? Why don't they like me? What did I do? What did I do?
What did I do? I think one of the hardest parts about implementing boundaries, sorry guys, I'm plugging in my MacBook over here. One of the hardest parts about implementing boundaries for anybody is that you then have to deal with the fallout of people don't like the boundaries that you implemented, which then makes you question yourself. Is it me? Is that why they're so upset? And did I do something wrong? And you got to accept that they just didn't like the boundary.
Yeah. And trying to circle this back to music, I think having those feelings and powerful feelings, because excuse me, music does bring back negative memories just as it does positive ones. Yeah. So you can hear a song that triggers a time for you that's very unsettling. You feel really bad. But it also could be reflective of that time too, just seeing what either you could or how the situation could have gone differently, how to make peace with it too. Like when you hear a song that triggers something, it can be cathartic.
I think that's definitely true, especially the part about self-reflection.
Yeah.
So that's music, memory, and emotion. Hope you guys are reflecting on your own memories and emotions out there.
And listening to Grimes.
Listening to Grimes music. All right, guys, if you stick around, we'll have some more podcast episodes uploaded for you guys every week as normal. I'm Jen. This is MK. We'll see you guys next time.
Good night.